Um, Again, welcome everyone. My name is Shayla Ford. I serve as the Leadership Program Director at Focus St. Louis. And what does that mean to you? It means this. Y'all, I get to work with the wonderful women that decide to apply and accept the invitation to come into our Women in Leadership program. I am, you see on my little digital name badge, I am from class 52. So leading this program now is really a full circle moment for me because I was in your seat, right? Interested in it and then actually applied and was accepted now about many years ago, right? And so it's just a joy to have you today. And I also have some special guests that I've invited who I'll introduce in a little bit. But first, I want you to just give me in the chat, like, what's your word for the day? What are you feeling? What's your vibe? Are you feeling good? Are you optimistic? Are you tired? Tell me how you're feeling today. Drop it in the chat. That'll give me a little like, what's going on? Where are people at? And I'll start, okay, determined, yes, thank you. Positive, productive, motivated. See, this is the kind of group of women that I want to be around day in and day out, right? Like life is lifing all of us, but we're still taking the high road. We're still taking the positive attitudes. We're still looking for the silver lining in all of our situations. So I'm loving all of these positive words. I'm going to go ahead and get started. I have a couple of slides that'll kind of just walk us through some information. And then, like I said, my special guest, I have 4 graduates from the Women in Leadership program with me today. I will ask them a couple of, simple questions for them to respond to. And then I will open it up for Q&A. And really, if it's an administrative question, myself or Kate will respond. Otherwise, I want the women who are our graduates to respond to your questions. Like, why should you do this? What was their experience? What surprised them, or what was really satisfying for them when they were in the program? So we'll do that very shortly. I'm going to share my screen. Yes, well, if you can see, let me know. Can you see it? Okay. Kate, why don't you do a quick introduction now too, because if you all decide to apply, you're going to hear a lot from my colleague, so you should get to know her now. Why don't you say hello?
Hello, I'm Kate Hanford. I've been working with Focus St. Louis for about 3 years now. Usually you correspond with me through email, but I enjoy opportunities like this where I'm more than just an unembodied piece of digital correspondence with you. Thank you for joining us today. I'll be dropping lots of things in the chat, including Shayla and I's contact information and a few web addresses that are helpful. I'll also be recording questions as we go. I am a free thinker, and so as questions come up, just drop them in the chat. You don't have to wait till the end. Want to address it as we're thinking of it, and then it'll most likely, as Shayla said, be answered by our wonderful alums that are on the call today. So thank you again for joining us. And again, anyone that signed up for this, whether you're in attendance now or signed up for it later, will be getting a copy of this recording today.
Awesome. Thanks, Kate. So we are partners in women's empowerment, and I'm glad that we get to team together to do this. So welcome to the Women in Leadership information session. Our agenda for today is kind of simple, right? We want to tell you a little bit about the program, like who are ideal candidates. We want to hear some participant testimonials, which is our graduates kind of responding to my questions and your questions. And then we'll share with you a few of the next steps. If you are not familiar, you're like, what do I do next? Yes, I want to do this. We'll share that with you. And then we'll also share some timelines just so that you can get your application recommendations in for consideration. And just so you know, this is Will 77. So all of our women in leadership, we like name the cohorts so that we just have this connection to one another. So this is one of our cohorts from a couple of falls ago. And this could be you in the next pictures, right? So what is Women in Leadership? We are we're a program as part of the Focus St. Louis leadership portfolio. And we're really about developing women who are professional women looking to level up, looking to like build a new community or find their tribe and really enhance their leadership skills and competencies so that they can lead better where they live, learn, work, play, and worship, right? So I want you to be a well-rounded woman who can lead, but for us, that leadership development really starts from you and within. And so our philosophy in the program is that we lead best when we can first lead ourselves. And so this is a program that whether you are in the C-suite, you're on early in your career path, or maybe you're at the end of your career and thinking, what do I want next? We have women from all of those kind of phases and stages in the program. And it is about developing an understanding of our region, but first through the lens of your leadership, and then women who are leading in the region and can share from their industry or sector experience and or share in their own leadership journey so that you can glean from them and their opportunity. So this program, it actually has the wrong date. September to December is the current group, but for spring, the dates are February through early May. And so it's an opportunity with a finite time for a commitment of 4 Saturdays and 3 Thursdays, and then a kickoff event. You might be asking yourself, well, I've thought about this for a while. I've heard from somebody else. I think it's a great program and it probably would be a good fit, but how do I know I'm the ideal candidate? Well, we have some bullets here, but really the fact that you're interested, you know, you want to level up, you know that you want to invest in yourself. Those are really the criteria for the ideal candidate, right? And so this opportunity um, creates for you an opportunity to say yes to yourself, to gain a deeper understanding of who you are and how you lead. It also gives you an opportunity to build, like I said, a community of other women who are like-minded and are experiencing, you know, maybe challenges in their leadership or looking to level up, looking for a promotion or looking for the next opportunity. You're going to be in a cohort of women who have similar interests and have similar goals, like aspirations to move forward, to move ahead, and sometimes for aspirations to stay right where they are, but to really grow their influence instead of like laddering up, grow their influence kind of horizontally rather than just vertically. So the other opportunity that this program presents is that Focus has 11,000 plus graduates. So this opportunity is also one that'll allow you to connect with a network of Focus trained leaders who are doing great work in the region and you want to get to know them, right? And so we are intentional that this is a cohort model. You go through it with a small group of women who are like-minded on the same journey, but then Focus also offers other opportunities for you to network, alumni events, forums, and other things that allow you to come together with other leaders who have also been trained through our programs. Right now you see on your screen is our calendar for September, excuse me, spring 2025. I'm like, my mind is like in all kinds of places today, so I apologize for that. And so if you're wondering, well, what is the time commitment? The time commitment is before you. All of these dates are something that are important for you to know, whether it's the selection, our opening reception, or just each of the days, field days, seminar days, where we're in the program from 9 to 4, and then we have a graduation that is inclusive of all of our programs. So you'll not only graduate with the other cohort of women in leadership, you'll graduate with 2 cohorts of our emerging leader program, and then the full cohort of our Leadership St. Louis program, which is the flagship. So this is the schedule. Something that's also been asked of me, so I'm going to address it now, is what's the difference between field days and seminar days? Field days are days where we're out in community and the community is our classroom, and we're meeting women from a particular sector. So we might meet women from the business and nonprofit sector, we'll meet women from government and public sector, and then we meet women who are working in programs or organizations that are specifically addressing the needs of women and girls in our region. Why would we do a gender specific program and not bring those leaders in to talk about the good work that they're doing in the region? So that's the field days. Our seminar days are on Saturdays. This is more of this reflective, inward self-awareness opportunity on those days. And so the focus is really on you and building your leadership skills and capacity from the focus of you. Like, where are you at? What do you want? What are your values? You know, how are you showing up in the world? How can we help you level up through some other tools and skills that we'll present to you through our guest speakers and or the content that I actually facilitate and lead on those days. So the seminar days are about self, about you as the participant. Field days are about meeting women who are doing great work in various sectors in our region. So, Kate, check the chat for me to make sure I'm not missing anything. So what are the benefits of this program? A deeper understanding of the region, but really through the lens of professional women who are, you know, sitting in the C-suite or other positions in organizations or sectors in the region. You are going to get access to leaders that maybe you've seen or heard on the news or read about in the paper, or maybe you know because of other professional organizations you're in. But we bring these women in for real intimate conversations about their leadership journeys and how they're navigating the spaces that they find themselves in. Some of the skills that you'll be able to enhance or improve upon are collaboration, decision-making, facilitation, negotiation is one of the big ones. Like, how do I negotiate the salary or the next promotion? And then more about strategic thinking. We also have some content around like the self-care and life work harmony so that we can really think about how do you balance all of it as a woman in leadership and a woman of influence in our region. And then, like I said, just this greater sense of connection and personal commitment, not only to yourself and the group of women that you're going through the program with, but then that greater and deeper sense of responsibility to the region. Because we not only want you to be leaders in your organizations, but because of the type of organization that focuses, which is a civic leadership organization, it is important that we think about how you can take your leadership and expand your reach, expand your territory, and begin to serve and influence in other areas at work, in community, and at home. So I'm coming to the good part. This is the best part, right? So now I've invited some Will alumna to talk about their experience. And so I'm going to ask Kate if you could pin them. I'm going to stop sharing the screen. You're going to see their wonderful and beautiful faces. And what I'm going to ask them each to do first is introduce themselves how they would choose to, and then we'll get into a couple of questions. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and ask that, I'm going to start with Courtney. I'm going to ask that you would introduce yourself in whatever way that you want to introduce yourself, and then we'll move on from there for each of the other guests, and then I'll leap into the questions that I have for you. So Courtney.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Courtney J. Harris. I am the Communications and Outreach Specialist here for the St. Louis County Executive, Sam Page. And I was Will class of 79, which was the beginning of this year.
Awesome, thank you. Let's go next to Laura.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Laura Raisler, and I serve as the Senior Annual Giving Officer at Mercy Health Foundation. I split my time between the hospital in Dallas and the hospital at South, which is where I am today. So apologies if you hear any lullabies in the background as we have births or any announcements over the loudspeakers. But I was privileged to be part of Will 75, which was spring of 22. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome, thank you. Let's go next to Brittany.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I am Brittany Ross. I am the manager of financial operations here at Central States Water Resources Group. We are a privately owned water and wastewater company. We're headquartered in St. Louis, but we own assets or water systems over 14 states. I was privileged to be part of Will 78, which was last fall. And my last thing that I would like to leave you with is that you're worthy, right? You're in this room because you should be here. I believe that everything is for a time and a place. So regardless of as we go through this presentation today, you see all the other women on the call, you may think that maybe you can't balance it, you don't have the time, you're not ready, somebody has more experience than you. No, ma'am, you belong here. And so please take in the journey and recognize every day when you wake up that you are worthy when you step your feet on the floor.
Awesome. Like we could just stop there and go like drop the mic. Thank you, Brittany. All right, last but certainly not least, Carrie, why don't you give us a quick intro and tell us about you?
That's all of that. My name is Carrie Willett. I am the Senior Director of a company called Therapy Relief and Hope. We are a nonprofit therapy provider headquartered in Springfield, Illinois, but the division that I run is here in St. Louis. And I was honored to be class of Will 76, which was fall of 22. So thank you for having me.
Thank you all for being here. Okay, I'm going to jump right in. I'm going to play talk show host. I'm going to put the questions to you. First, I want to know, like, why were you even interested in Will? Where were you at in your particular career journey that made you interested in even considering this program? So tell us a little bit about like that point for you. Let's start with Carrie because you just spoke last. So let's bring your voice back in. Tell us about that for you.
I have always been a seeker. I was the kid who thoroughly enjoyed school and I thrived on personal development. I like to soak up everything that I can. And so I was eager to find, I know Shayla's been, mentioning this throughout, a group of like-minded women. And it was important for me to find a group of women at this period in my life that I could bond with, that I could learn from. And then little did I know throughout that entire experience, and I can go more into it as we go throughout the questions, but the person that I really ended up learning the most from was myself. And so I think that is a huge piece of this is that you have that personal development piece of it as well as the professional development. But there's so much that I learned about myself throughout this journey that I'm continuing to because I do stay connected. Like Shayla said, I do stay connected to the entire focus group and I'm an active member now and thoroughly seek out and network, throughout all of those groups.
Awesome. Thank you. Courtney, I'm going to bounce to you. Why don't you tell us, like, why did you consider applying to Women in Leadership and yeah, where were you at in that stage of your decision-making process?
Yeah, sure. So I, everything that I do in my life has always been girl and women centered. I went to Spelman College, which is an all women's HBCU. And so when I moved back here, I was finding community, but I wasn't finding that women-led community that was really important to me, where I felt like I thrived the most. And so I was just kind of seeking that in a professional arena. And I wanted to be with people who I had never met. I wanted to meet a new community of people, of women in particular. And so, I did the Emerging Leaders Program, they're very different. So if you've done one, this is not like the other. They're completely different programs. And I learned different things in both of them. And I was just seeking that like powerful, womanly space where I felt like I can be my full self and lead with being a woman and the ultimate girl's girl. So that's why I applied to Will.
Thank you. And thank you for sharing that. Yes, we have other programs in our portfolio. So Emerging Leaders is kind of geared toward young professional. Then you have Women in Leadership, you have Leadership St. Louis, and then you have Experience St. Louis. They're all very unique programs, and we are intentional as a team here at Focus that if you come through one program, you're only building upon what you've learned from another program. It's not the exact same experience. It's very different. And so I thank you for bringing that up, Courtney, because someone might say, maybe this isn't the right fit, but maybe something else in your portfolio is. So let us explore that with you.
And I think it was a timing. Emerging Leaders made sense to me at the time. I had just relocated back to St. Louis and was kind of trying to find my footing. starting working here. And so it worked for that time. And so as time went on, like Will worked for me at that time. So, and I applied to the Will cohort that Brittany was in, but work was super hectic. I'm like, maybe this isn't the time. And so then I reapplied for the next one. So it really was just a timing thing for me and like where I was in my career life at the time.
Awesome. Thank
Hey,
you for sharing.
Shayla, do you mind if I share something additional that addresses some of the questions that have been popping up in the chat related to timing?
Yes, yes.
So there was a question of fall versus spring. The layout of the days is very similar over 3-month time period, about 2 weeks staggered from one another, field days versus seminar days. The difference, in Courtney, I mean, nail on the head, the timing and the season of your life. If you know that your work has a lot of travel in the spring, then you should probably consider fall. If you know that like you're in that season of life where everyone's getting married, and there's going to be a lot of autumn weddings, like just plan accordingly, because another question was attendance. It's not required. Life happens, work happens, you know, family comes first. You're going to get sick. But if you know that there's going to be some dates you're missing, either because of work or other obligations, we would encourage you to just think about a season where you can make more time for you to be fully present, because we want you to get the most out of the experience. And that's the best way to do it, to be in person and to be present. There are very few things. This information session is actually one of the few things that we still do virtually. Being present and in person with the speakers is just a more meaningful experience. They're very frank, they're very genuine, they're very open and honest in a way that you don't always get if someone feels like it's recorded or that you're not having that personal interaction. So just to address the timing, and then we can address, Shayla, there was a question of emerging leaders versus other programs. We can address that as well, but timing is another thing. The schedules look different
Yes.
as well. And we can, you know, go into the detail of the difference of the programs later. I don't want to take away from Laura Brittany's time, but keep good questions, ladies. Keep them coming through the chat.
Awesome. Thank you, Kate, for helping to clarify that. Brittany, I'm going to toss it over to you. Why did you apply to Will?
So I had Will kind of on my radar for years before I felt like I had gotten to the point in my career that I like qualified for this program. I'm at the point where I started younger having my children. And so now I was on a quest to figure out what's next for me in my life. We start off younger, you know, you take jobs, you take roles, but at some point you get to the point where you do the things that really, to Courtney's point, kind of circumvent who you are as a person. So I definitely have also arrived to that place. I'm a member of Sigma Gamma Rho. I do a lot of community service and things like that. But this really was about me. It was about the full facet focus of not what title I had, not what role I had, not what rooms I had been in, that I had fought my way to sit at the table, but more so about really growing me up and being around other women that beyond our titles, what we look like, what age we are, really have more in common than we don't, because some of the weight that you carry as just a professional, successful woman that's balancing all of those things, at times you feel alone, maybe even in the cultural environment of your job or what you see on social media. But when you come in the room with these other high achieving women, we're all trying to figure out, girl, what's for dinner? And somebody's running a soccer and somebody has a kid that's sick. And it reminds you that although you've put on all of these capes to be super every day to prove who you are human, right? And so this was absolutely the time frame for me to just do something for me, to also figure out professionally what's next for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Laura, why did you consider Will? And like, look, I'm not going to tell you like what to say, but I just remember someone referred you to me, you reached out and we just had a one-on-one, and I'm always asking like, what are your goals? Like, yes, what season of life and can you commit, but what are your goals, right? Like, because if it's not for you, I'm not going to try to sell you on it. My goal is to see if we have an alignment, and then you make the choice for yourself. But Laura, so when I think of you, I think of like, I remember that conversation, and we were virtual and we had a call and we talked about a lot of things. And then you said, you know, you made a decision, but why did you even approach it from the start?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had heard about women in leadership and Coro, as it was previously called, from a friend who completed the program right before I had my second child, and she raved about the program. And while it might have been an okay time professionally, personally, it was not the right time for me to do it, but it had always kind of been on my mind and on my radar. But as the years gone by, I had kind of forgotten about it until in my professional life, I was given a leadership opportunity in the fall of 2019, which, if I had had future vision lenses, I would have been like, well, this is a fun time to become a leader of an organization. And I was working with an executive coach who was also an alum of Women in Leadership, or maybe another focus program, who connected me to Shayla. And it really was the right time for me. I was really questioning whether I was the right person to be in that role. I had stepped in as interim and then was offered the full-time position of CEO of this organization. And I was really lacking in confidence, which is kind of the story of my life. I think I'm always questioning, am I enough? Am I the right person for this? And it was really a perfect time for me to step in. And I know this kind of tiptoes into another question, but it really, one of the biggest things that I took from Will was that as much as I appreciated the opportunity and I learned a lot in my 2 years in that leadership role, was that I was missing what I loved about my job. I'm a fundraiser. And so it allowed me to pivot in a different direction for myself professionally, which has also had positive implications for my personal life too, in terms of work-life balance. So it was definitely the right time. And like I said, I'd been thinking about this program since 2012, and 10 years later, I made it happen. And I think it was because it was the right time in the right place for me.
Awesome. Thank you. So here's the next question that I'm going to put out to the group, and I'll allow you to like chime in or jump in and select who goes first. But what surprised you most about Will? So you decide to apply, whether you've been thinking about it for years on end, someone tells you about it, finally you said, I'm going to do it. It's my time now. I apply, I'm selected, I'm in the program. What surprised you most?
I think what surprised me most is that these are really my people. Like, I never met the women in my class before. And I have two sets of twins. And although they're older now, like, it never stops. I ask my college age kids every day, like, I thought you wanted to be grown. Like, stop asking me for stuff, right? But like, my group is so like close knit. As life continued to happen to people within my cohort, and I try to think about it without crying, because it was like some real stuff going on. Like the way we just were able to motivate each other, pray for each other for those of us that do that, and just like, girl, you gonna be okay, and just like check on each other, right? Like, I have never, because I work in private industries, mostly with men, um, seen so many women that like really were girls. And, Shayla and Kate do a phenomenal job. It's like they were destined to be the glue for this organization. But no matter how you feel when you come in the door, every time, we always was crying. It just, I don't know, it just happened. Even for those of us that ain't, the most emotional, but like, it really is a safe space. And people say that you have safe spaces. There are sisterhood events of put on by Mean Girls or whatever, or people go through the motions of saying they have diversity to check the box. But when I tell you, like, this is really y'all safe space, for real, like from the moment you step in the door, you will know, like every time, whatever's happening, whatever you're feeling, if you're trying to get a job, if you're trying to interview, if you, need to do a presentation for work and you're staying, like, these are really your people. And I have never, and I'm in a sisterhood, right? And I love my sorors, but I've never been in a space that was as uniquely fit like this, because I think where you're really at the same place as these individuals. And that's something that's unique that nobody understands until they go through it. So that really surprised me.
And Brittany, if I may add to that, and just completely back you up. So, for example, my group went through in the fall of 22. We still talk through, group chats and everything like that. Like I'm sure all of the other cohorts do. I had a sick kid last week in the hospital. I had 5 women from my cohort message me and say, "What do you need? I can be there. Do you need dinner? Do you need a toothbrush? What do you need? I'll be there." I don't see these women on a regular basis, but they were there to back me up. And so this is a sisterhood. And I don't think that the sisterhood confines itself to the cohort in which you belong. I think that once you are a little sister, so all 4 of these women, I consider a sister. And so it is truly something that stays with you. The learning that takes place, and I keep going back to the about yourself, the learning that occurs about yourself continues to blossom throughout and to go on for years after. I mean, here we are sitting, 2 years, after I've completed, my session. And just the things that you learn about yourself. But like Brittany said, that sisterhood of just women who back you up no matter what, that is what sticks. And that is what kind of, it surprised me, because it was not this, like she said, it was not this mean girls or this catty club. It was truly a sisterhood of, what can we do to support you? You've got a job interview. Cool. Let's meet and help you work on some negotiation skills. You've got a sick kid. Let me bring you a meal. I mean, it is a complete sisterhood of caretaking.
Yeah, and I'll echo that, Jane and Carrie. I hope that your little one is doing okay. I think that, Carrie and I both were in the post-COVID world very early on, and so my cohort was a mix of virtual events and in person. And I think we all lived through those days of like, what does virtual training look like? What does virtual team building look like? And I think I went in not quite knowing what to expect. And to Brittany's point, I think Shayla and Kate were absolutely built for this. The depth and the level of the content that we received, but B, the relationships that were built was incredible to me. I've never experienced anything like that. From the very first Zoom that we had, when our welcome reception, bonds were already made immediately with people, via the screen. And then they were deepened when we got together in person. And just, I still reflect on the content that we were given during our cohort. I have reminders around my desk. I have the group chat to reach out to my sisters. Yeah, it's just, the depth of the relationships and the depth of content was, beyond my expectation. So, yeah, I feel like that is what Brittany and Carrie said too, but I can't emphasize that enough, that like this goes beyond anything you've ever been a part of before, in terms of what you learn about yourself and your role in the community and in your own life.
I think that I was most surprised. I usually, every workspace, career space, I am the youngest person in a lot of the spaces that I enter. And with that, I enter a lot of places guarded, because I know that I have to make sure people know that I can do my job, or that I am organized, or that I am, just the list goes on. And so I believe that I entered the program with that same, like, my name is Courtney J. Harris and I am like no games or whatever it is. Like, I entered with that kind of energy that I enter a lot of spaces that I work in, with men and women. I think all of my jobs, I've been grateful to work on a lot of like women-centered teams, but I entered the space with a very asserted energy that I know what I'm doing, because I am pretty young. And so I think I was surprised that I didn't have to be that way. And that I was allowed to ask questions about things I didn't know. Like, I don't know a lot of stuff. I know a lot of things, but I don't know a lot of things. And so after a while, it took for me to allow other people to help me when I wanted to know some information, but I felt like in other spaces I can't have that vulnerability. So I was really surprised that I was welcomed in that, and like people were like, yes, when I was your age, I thought this, or like, oh, well, you're thinking of this in an innovative way. Like, how can you help me, Courtney? And so it was like that back and forth of being able to, still be myself, but like ask questions when I didn't know maybe what was going on in my career or my life or anything. So I was surprised to be welcomed into a group that allowed me to be myself. And yeah, they weren't treating me any kind of way because of my age, I guess.
Awesome. Thank you all for sharing. Here's another question. So we know why you applied. We know like what surprised you about being involved, but what was your biggest takeaway? Like when you think of back to your experience, like what was the one thing, if you could distill it down to one, that you were like, this thing right here was the thing that like was what I needed and what I got and what I walk away with. Like I walked away with that's still maybe offering you something good and positive. So Laura, why don't I start with you?
Yeah, great. I I think the biggest thing that I took away from my time with Will was, again, I was at a time where I was you know, being given a greater leadership opportunity, and was really reflecting on the things that I thought were holding me back from being a great leader. Those who know me, I'm a very emotional person, that's something that I always thought held me back. And I was really concerned when I stepped into that leadership role that that would be a hindrance. And over the course of my time at Will, I realized that that is my superpower. That is something that makes me a great leader. It's not a defect or a default. It is what makes me a unique leader. It makes me the leader that I am. And it opened my eyes to the fact that, I need to find those places that support that and that recognize that and don't consider that a hindrance, that I wear my heart on my sleeve. And, I care about people and love hard and am silly and all of those things. So I think that for me was really reaffirming, and it's something I can honestly say, like, thinking back the last 2 years, I don't consider that to be like a flaw anymore. It's something that I own, and it took a long time for me to get to that place, but I'm grateful that Will allowed me to see that as the superpower it is for me.
Awesome. Brittany, what would be your biggest takeaway?
Biggest takeaway is that I don't fill my cup enough. And I say that because even in my experience at Will, I had my calendar invites and I did all these things, right, to say like, this is my time. I still at times allowed life, work, whatever else to get in the way naturally, where I could have had better boundaries. It wasn't life or death, right? And so there were things that I missed. So when they talk about like the virtual versus being in those rooms, because not only are you meeting your family here, I have never met so many people in a short amount of time. Like I was like, oh my God, we met 9 people today. Like it's just the women that they interweave in the room between alumni and politicians and professors and this person and that person. Like it's so amazing. So really choosing you as often as possible with balance and understanding. We all need a check, but like really taking this time to be present. I realized I gave myself an F+ in it. I had to go back to therapy and say, I ain't got it. I didn't get the lesson. And so that was the biggest like thing. Like you can't just go through the motions all the time. Like I really needed to be more present and have better boundaries in this season than I had. And I got so much out of it, but I would have got so much more. So it showed me like, again, I was worthy to give myself this time and unapologetically choose me. So that's what I learned.
Awesome. Courtney, what would be what was your biggest takeaway?
My biggest takeaway was to remain true to myself. I do enter every space with the way that I dress, or like my style, or how I enter a room in the world, and I'm very committed to that. And not for, it's all for me. Like that makes me feel good to enter the room. I'd rather wear sneakers and high heels, or even something as simple as that. But I think my biggest takeaway is like I was entering the space every day authentically myself. In we have a presentation at the end, and I'm not sure if it's the same for every class. I assume it is, but there's a presentation at the end, and one of my Will sisters did her presentation, and she talked about authenticity, and then my face was on the screen because she's like, Courtney has shown me that like I can enter the room how I feel most comfortable. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've just been showing up as myself, and like that landed for somebody. So I took away to always remain like true to myself, whatever that looks like at the time. I'm changing all the time. I could decide I want to wear high heels every day tomorrow, and I will, and that will be it. But so to just always like remain true to what how I want to enter every space and remain true to myself is my biggest takeaway.
Awesome. Carrie, what would you say was your biggest takeaway? And before you respond, let everyone know we're we're ready for your questions. So, get ready with them. Either you can come off your screen and unmute and ask, or put it in the chat. Either way, we want to hear from you and make sure that we answer your questions. But Carrie, what was your biggest takeaway?
I think one of mine was being that I have slowed down and to be more intentional in slowing down with the expectations that I always held for myself, that at this age I should be here in my career and I'm not yet there. And so I must be failing because I haven't met those expectations that I put upon myself. And one of the things that has really stuck out is that, and I don't remember which time that we talked about this, but the power of pausing and the strength in silence, that it is almost better. I was always that girl in class that's like, oh, I know the answer. Oh, wait, that's me. I know it. I know it. And I was always volunteering to speak because that I was uncomfortable in that silence. And so being comfortable, being uncomfortable. And so to be able to absorb that and to learn from that and take away that learning has helped me become a better active listener. It's helped me to become, I think, a better communicator, both at home and then as well as in my leadership journey currently.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I saw, Kate, I know you're kind of taking kind of note and stock of questions, but I see this last one from someone named Joanne that says, would you all be able to share specific examples of how you were able to bring insights or learning from the program back into your professional or civic role? So they're like, hey, so you did it. So what, now what? Like, really? So like, how did you, what was the application, right? The practical application for some of these things, specifically at work? If you have an example that you want to share, that would be great. Go ahead, Brittany.
I'll share an example. So one thing that I've always been challenged with is, and I just read something about this, the difference of being like arrogant and self-promoting yourself. Like when you're worthy in your rooms and you do great things, because that's one of the things that we share a lot with Focus and Focus Family is like achievements of people within the group, and we're naturally happy for them. I really learned how to advocate for myself in ways that I don't think I previously had advocated. I learned that it was okay for me to be really good at some things. I found ways to use the networking and the people that we met to really grow my network and to, really put in practice those principles, even in what I do. So, it's really important to be good at what you do, but then it's also important to have great relationships, right? Because people are going to be in rooms that you're not in and they can advocate and speak for you. And so I really have taken more time to nurture my relationships professionally, and it has paid off for me in ways that I don't think previously. I thought I was kind of stagnant, and it was kind of like I did the women in leadership role, this program, and I think I was more intentional in how I showed up, but also how I really took care of those relationships and those networks and really taking the time to understand people, what they really do. Hey, where do you work? We saw so many cool buildings and places in St. Louis I didn't even know existed. I don't know where I'd be in my own world, right? And so really taking a moment to like, oh, this is so cool. Like, you all work here, you bring your dogs, or they have snacks and just all these great things. We always have food, but like really being intentional and not just going through the motions. And people initially, more so outside my company first than in my company, were like, something's different about you. I wanted to tell them it's Shayla and Kate and those daily motivations or something. Like, it really does. It just really gives you a new step, a real new step in how you just deal with people, how you communicate, how you go about challenges, how you see glasses half full, and how you show up in rooms, even if you already were authentically you. It's kind of other people seeing your worth and your value as well, that have roles that I would never probably be able to do, right? It does something for you, and it has positively paid off for myself, but also for my company through the networks and the relationships and the success of other business ventures that we have.
Awesome. The other thing that I want to share, that's something that Brittany did that I love, 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 right? So every year Focus puts on a Women's History Month breakfast.
Mhm.
And earlier this year, Brittany's like, yeah, I got like 30, 40 women I want to bring. And I was like, what? She's like coming deep, right? And I was like, I think we can work that out. Like all we need to do is like, register everybody and whatever. So she comes to this event, which is packed. There's at least 300 plus women, a lot of wheel women in the room. And she's like in her, in her vibe and in her mode, right? Because she's brought all these women to this event that she's a part of, right? And she's like, let me connect, let me introduce, and
Yeah.
she was like working the room and also like amplifying the women that she brought. And I was like, that was amazing because you were like, I'm just being me. And Focus
Yeah,
is a place that I can just be me. And I'm going to be
exactly.
well received here. And I want to show other women that too. I want them to experience this in a different way. And I was like, she brought out, like, yeah, we took all these pictures and all of that. So it's not, yes, it's about this program, but it is also about the connections that you make in Focus and the other places and spaces that you'll show up. And because you are a Focus trained leader, other leaders are like, oh, they recognize that, they see that, they know that there's a similar experience, even though it might have been a different program. And it opens doors for conversations and opportunities in ways that you may not have expected. It's not the only reason you do a program. It is about the work that you do for you, but there are so many perks and benefits beyond, right? And so that's like one example. And I was like so excited to see her and all her, women that worked in her organization and just coming out and bonding and celebrating like the awesomeness of women on that particular day. So Brittany, thank you for sharing. Are there anyone else that want to jump in to talk about like what's the practical application? I see Courtney and Laura. So Courtney, let's go to you, and then Laura, let's go to you.
Since I've graduated from Will, I have a new job. Actually, I work with one of my Will sisters from my class. But one of these sessions was about how to negotiate your pay and what you should be saying, what men are saying and asking for that we are too afraid to ask for. I had always negotiated my pay, but it was like some like pennies, like, oh, can I just get $1 more? Like, And so after we had that session, I felt way more equipped to like negotiate when it came down for me taking the job I currently have. And so that's like more of a practical like way I was able to. I didn't really know who to ask about. Like my parents have been working at their jobs forever. Like I didn't know anybody who had really like went back and forth about like what I deserve. And so negotiation skills is something that I took from Will that helped me literally a few months after.
Laura, what about you?
Yeah, I will echo that too, Courtney. That was one of the ones I actually used that when I took my job at Mercy, and I felt confident doing it because it was really helpful to hear from others that we can and should be asking for these things. And if it's not monetary compensation, are there other things like extra PTO, ways to advocate for yourself? But I would say like certainly countless professional ways this has benefited me, but I wanted to go back to that question about how you bring that back into your life. And I think personally, as a mom, as a wife, as a community member, I have two sons, 17 and 12. And I think there are times where I get a little, I'm trying to equip them as best I can to be like productive members of society in a very patriarchal society that, they're going to be a part of. And so I'm trying to give them the tools and equip them to be good allies in the community and supportive. And I think it's one way I can show them and lead by example about being civically involved and being and how to network. My husband might argue like I don't need to be any more social than I already am, but it's helpful and professionally, excuse me, Shayla knows she's been a part of this, but I work with our Women's Giving Society here at Mercy. And this network that I've built with not only my cohort, but Focus in general and Focus alums has really helped me connect the mission and the work that I do here to the community. So when we have seminars, I'm always looking to invite Will members, or Shayla spoke at our symposium last year. And it's been really great to make those connections and elevate people that I care about and make those connections more broadly. So
Thank you. I'm going to go to another question. I see someone says that I've mentioned, bringing in leaders from the community. Is that to actually facilitate the skill training, et cetera? So sometimes, yes, like yes, and yes, sometimes I'm bringing in women who are facilitating specific sessions like negotiation skills or talking about, like leveling up your LinkedIn or your social media and like your presence on social and how you get exposure that way to someone that's talking about resumes. Actually, Dr. Jeanette's coming back, but she's going to talk about how do you optimize your genius this year, right? And so there's people that I'm bringing in who are leaders in the region that are actually sharing content and skill building training. And then some of those women are sitting on our panels. We call them lead her, and I'm spelling the her in that word, right? To like emphasize that these are women who are leading, who are coming to have conversations with us about their journeys, about their leadership, about the work that they're doing and the progress that they're making in our community. And what's unique about that is the cohort drives that conversation, which that is very different. It's not a moderated panel by me. It is a moderated panel by the women in the cohort. And so you are, put in small groups in the larger cohort and then assigned a conversation or a panel that you actually create and moderate, right? And so that's a different experience in terms of engagement and conversation and really learning what it is you want from that person or that conversation. And so that's something a little bit different and unique to our panels as well. Are there other questions, Kate, that I missed? I see you're like responding to some things and jotting some things down in the chat. Is there something else that's come up, or does someone want to come off mute and ask a question to our Will alumna while they're here?
I wanted to share just a few kind of logistical things that I thought would be helpful. Were kind of generally mentioned. Learning in the community and from community leaders. We're hosted at a lot of different sites. So we're all over, and you get those details from me a week in advance. Another thing that's similar and different, every cohort's topics, meeting locations, food, community interviews, cohorts, it all looks different, but there's a lot of through commonalities, the connections, connecting really genuinely. There are a few speakers that might cross over, like Dr. Jeanette, but Shayla does a beautiful job of getting a vibe of the class, listening to the class, the needs of the class, the interests of the class, listening to you in particular. And a Rolodex is only, it's not a real thing anymore. It's kind of a cliche. We're beyond that. But Focus, and Shayla in particular, has a wonderful Rolodex of connecting you with leaders, and being a part of the membership of Focus unlocks that for you as well. And not in a pretentious way, but Carrie and I were chatting one time, and I said, well, have you gone back and talked to our speaker that we had on this day? And she said, you know what? I didn't have the bandwidth on in that season of my life, but I'm going to reach out to her. Do you have her contact still? Of course I do. And she reached out, and it was really helpful. So it's also not like there's homework. Someone asked about what the times are. Thursdays and Saturdays, 9 to 4. And the only like homework is connecting with your interview team, but there's enough resources that it's helpful to look back at different seasons in your life, to continue learning, to continue asking questions, to continue that personal and professional self-reflection as well. And to Courtney's point, that mentorship that is shared as a cohort, it's a group of women, but they're actually extremely diverse women, diverse in the places of their career, diverse in the sectors of their career, diverse in family makeup. And the best mentorship is kind of an up-down thing, right? If it's just contractual in one way, that's not really genuine or terribly fruitful or helpful, especially if you're kind of generating ongoing relationships. Those were some of the things I wanted to mention. And so there's emerging leaders, women in leadership, leadership St. Louis, and experience St. Louis. They all sound very similar, but the goals of each program, the calendars of the programs are very different. So you've seen the calendar for women in leadership, and we've talked a little bit about emerging leaders. Leadership St. Louis is kind of for C-level executives, and it's more around topics like arts and culture, or racial justice and equity for a weekend, and education and quality of life monthly over a 9-month period. So again, they look a little different. The women leadership themes are a little different, and the meeting times are a little bit different. It's a little bit more intensive because we meet as often as emerging leaders, and that's why there's 2 cohorts. But emerging leaders typically meets mostly on weekdays, but those are full day and half day. So again, your goal and your calendar looks different. But if you have continued questions about those, let us know. Those were a lot of things I saw in the chat, Shayla, but if anyone else has any questions, feel free to raise your hand. And then Shayla and I will share the nitty gritty of application and logistics for that as well.
Thank you, Kate. So here's the last question I'm going to put to our special guest, because I didn't see any other questions popping up. So what's your advice to these prospective participants, right? It's like they're on the fence potentially, right? They're like, I don't know, this was great, but should I really do it? I want each of you to give me like your 30-second quick, like, this is my, encouragement to you. Carrie, I'll start with you.
So if you are going to invest in this experience, submerge yourself fully in it. Attend the sessions, be present. We all have things going on outside, but be as present as you can. Make the connections. Don't wait until the last few sessions. Make the deep connections, a kind of up front in the middle. And when the speakers offer to connect with you via LinkedIn, like Brittany, put up in the chat right now, do it. Expand the network, but do so meaningfully and be intentional about it. Don't just do it to expand your network. Be meaningful. And lastly, be vulnerable. Allow yourself the gift that is will.
Thank you, Carrie. Laura, what would be your, advice to these prospective participants in the program?
Yeah, I'll echo what Carrie said. I think invest in yourself. I think invest in yourself and commit to it. You will get out of this program what you put into it. And I understand we are all busy women who have busy professional lives, busy personal lives. And I always tell the story. So there were some extra optional sessions that were offered during our group, and it was a virtual session, and I had a really long day at my home office, and I wasn't going to call in, but I did, and I'm so glad that I did, because I got so much out of that. It was a smaller group than our normal cohort. I think there was probably 6 of us that called in that day to talk about growth with Shayla, and it was so impactful, and I'm so glad that I made the choice for me to participate in that. It really changed the trajectory of my day. It put me in a better headspace. And I think it's hard as women. We don't often put ourselves first. There are so many other things that compete with our time and our energy, but really, if you take the step and apply, and I hope you do, commit to it, commit to yourself, and devote that time to you, you will not regret it.
Awesome. Courtney, what would be your piece of advice to the women who are on this call today?
Yeah, my piece of advice would be to enter with an open mind, and just allow the relationships you build to happen organically. I mean, I wouldn't even have known about my current job without my Will sister. And we were able to just become friends through the program and like get to really know each other. And so just enter with an open mind. Like Kate said, it's a really diverse group of women, and we had people who worked in fields I had never even heard of or knew there were jobs that their job was that existed. And so just take advantage of all of the things you can learn. I love learning. I know Carrie said something about that earlier. I just like knowing stuff. And so even if it's not necessarily connecting because I want to work where you work, or I want to create this sort of professional relationship, it's like, tell me more about whatever you do. That's interesting to me. So just enter with an open mind, and be open to learning everything from everybody around you, even your sisters. Yeah.
Thank you. Brittany, you get the last word. What is your advice to our audience today?
So I want to talk about the financial commitment and just encourage you to make the investment, even if it's professional development dollars, get extremely creative with your companies to prove out to them that this really is to develop you. And the more you're developed as an individual leader, the more they will long-term reap from that investment, right? You are worth the commitment. So we're almost to the end of the year. It's almost time to talk about raises and bonuses for those that go through those processes. If possibly you're told that it's not within the budget season, in my accounting voice, budgets are starting over soon. So start thinking about it. And so if you're like, I want to do it, but I don't know that they'll pay for it today, it's okay to keep it in your back pocket, but come to the table for what you want. If they don't commit to it for the next session, ask for it to be committed the time after, right? Like really know what you need, because this is worth the investment. And I think it's worth your company paying for it. You know, if you have to make a personal investment, cool, but there are also scholarships, right, early on in the process. So read your email and, you know, be proactive about what you want. I'm big on, if you put it out in the atmosphere and you're intentional about it one way or another, it will be given to you. So trust that it's already done. And so congratulations in advance to all of you that will go through this process.
Awesome. Thank you. We are at the 1 o'clock time, and our time is up, but I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you for our graduates who came on to share their experience and to encourage you to participate. If you have questions, I know Kate has dropped our information in the chat. I am happy to set up a one-on-one and answer anything else on a more personal level if that's what you would like to do. I'm open to it, but I just want to say thank you. Thank you for giving us an hour of your time. Thank you for investing in you. And I hope you make the next step and decide to choose this opportunity, because it is your time. It is your season. It's time for you to level up, ladies, and you can do it. You are worthy. You are enough. You have everything you need. And this community will help to support you to be the successful woman that you aspire to be. So thank you for your time today. It's good to see all these great faces on the screen. Have a good one. Look forward to seeing your application soon.